The envelope nobody expected. The ballroom glittered with crystal lights. Business leaders, investors, and innovators filled the room, celebrating a charity technology summit that had attracted some of the world's brightest minds. Among the guests was billionaire entrepreneur Sergey Brin. As cameras flashed and conversations echoed across the hall, an unexpected commotion broke out near the registration desk. A volunteer looked pale. "Someone lost an envelope," she whispered. The envelope contained $50,000 in donation funds collected during a private fundraising session. Panic spread instantly. People checked tables, security reviewed entrances, guests exchanged worried looks. Then a quiet voice interrupted the chaos. "Is this what you're looking for?" Everyone turned. Standing near the doorway was a man in worn work clothes. His shoes were dusty, his jacket looked years old. In his hand was the missing envelope. The room fell silent. The volunteer opened it. Every dollar was still inside. Not a single bill was missing. The organizers rushed forward with gratitude. "Sir, you saved us." Someone immediately offered him a reward. The man shook his head. "No, thank you." The crowd stared in disbelief. "You don't want anything?" He smiled gently. "It wasn't mine." Those 4 words hit harder than any speech delivered that evening. Sergey watched closely. Most people in the room had more money than they could spend in a lifetime, yet the person displaying the greatest integrity seemed to have the least. The man signed a simple statement confirming where he had found the envelope. His name was Daniel Carter. Age 38. Occupation, delivery driver, single father. Then he quietly walked away. But Sergey couldn't stop thinking about him. Why would someone struggling financially refuse such a reward? What kind of person walks away from $50,000 without hesitation? As Daniel disappeared into the night, Sergey made an unusual decision. He asked a trusted assistant to help him learn more. What he discovered would change everything. And before sunrise, Sergey would find himself following Daniel home. A house full of strength. The next evening, Sergey sat in an unmarked vehicle several blocks away. He wasn't looking for scandal. He wasn't looking for secrets. He was looking for answers. Daniel's home was a small rented house in an aging neighborhood. The paint was fading. The fence leaned slightly. The roof needed repairs. Yet something immediately stood out. Children were laughing. Inside that modest home was warmth. Daniel stepped out of his delivery van carrying groceries. A little girl raced outside. "Dad." She wrapped her arms around him. Daniel smiled as though he had just won the lottery. Moments later, he carried the grocery bags inside. Sergey observed from a distance. No luxury, no extravagance, just a father doing his best. Curiosity grew. Over the following days, he quietly learned more. Daniel worked 2 jobs. He drove deliveries during the day. He repaired equipment at night. His wife had passed away years earlier after a long illness. Medical expenses had consumed nearly all their savings. Many people would have become bitter. Daniel had become stronger. Neighbors described him the same way. Helpful, honest, reliable. If someone needed assistance moving furniture, Daniel showed up. If a neighbor's car broke down, Daniel helped fix it. If children needed encouragement, Daniel volunteered. Yet despite working constantly, he barely covered expenses. Sergey found this difficult to understand. The world often rewarded talent. Sometimes it rewarded luck, but it didn't always reward character. One rainy evening, Daniel sat at his kitchen table reviewing bills. The numbers didn't add up. Electricity, rent, school supplies, food, every dollar mattered. His daughter approached quietly. "Dad, are we okay?" Daniel smiled. "We're more than okay. But we don't have much money." Daniel looked at her carefully. "Money helps us live. Character helps us sleep." Those words stayed with Sergey. For years he had studied technology, innovation, and success. But this simple father possessed wisdom that couldn't be measured on a balance sheet. Then another discovery emerged. Daniel had a dream he had nearly abandoned, a dream that might explain everything. And Sergei realized he could either remain a silent observer or become part of the story. The dream, hidden in a notebook. One afternoon, Daniel visited the local library. After finishing his delivery route, he sat at a small corner table. Out came a battered notebook. Page after page contained sketches, ideas, calculations, concepts. Sergei was astonished. Daniel wasn't just working jobs. He was designing an affordable water purification device intended for small communities. The idea wasn't glamorous, it wasn't flashy, but it could help thousands of families gain access to cleaner drinking water. For years, Daniel had been researching solutions during spare moments, late nights, lunch breaks, weekends, whenever life allowed. The problem? He lacked funding. Manufacturing costs were high. Prototype development required resources he didn't possess. Most people would have quit. Daniel kept going. Every setback became another lesson. Every rejection became another chapter. One evening, he submitted his proposal to a small innovation competition. Weeks later, a rejection email arrived. Then another. Then another. Still, he continued refining the design. His daughter often sat beside him while he worked. "Dad, why don't you stop?" Daniel smiled. "Because helping people is worth trying." "What if it never works?" He paused. "Then I'll know I gave my best." Those words struck deeper than any motivational speech. Sergei saw something rare: persistence without applause, effort without recognition, purpose without guarantees. Many people chase success, few chase contribution. That difference fascinated him. The billionaire decided to act, but he didn't want to simply hand Daniel money. A gift could solve today's problems. Growth could transform a lifetime. So Sergei created a plan that would test Daniel's character one more time, and the invitation, arriving next week, would leave Daniel completely speechless. The impossible invitation. A letter arrived on Monday morning. Daniel assumed it was another bill. Instead, it was an invitation, a private innovation summit, attendance fully sponsored. Travel included. Daniel read the letter 3 times. There had to be a mistake. Why would anyone invite him? Yet the invitation was genuine. Encouraged by his daughter, he accepted. Days later, Daniel entered a modern conference center filled with entrepreneurs and inventors. He felt completely out of place. Expensive suits surrounded him. Industry experts discussed advanced technologies. Daniel nearly turned around and left. Then a speaker approached him. "You're Daniel, right?" "Yes. We've heard interesting things about your project." For the first time in years, someone wanted to listen. Not dismiss, not reject. Listen. Daniel presented his ideas. His voice shook at first. Then confidence grew. He explained the challenges, the science, the affordability goals, the social impact. The audience became increasingly engaged. Questions turned into conversations. Conversations turned into opportunities. But Daniel still had no idea who had opened this door. Meanwhile, Sergei watched from the back of the room. The billionaire wasn't impressed by technical details alone. He was impressed by humility. Whenever Daniel discussed the project, he focused on helping families rather than making money. Whenever he described success, he talked about impact rather than fame. That mindset was rare. As the summit concluded, organizers announced a surprise. One participant would receive mentorship, resources, and prototype support. The winner's name echoed through the room. Daniel Carter. He froze. The audience erupted in applause. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Years of struggle, years of rejection, years of doubt. Suddenly a door had opened, but the biggest surprise was still coming, because the mysterious sponsor behind the program finally wanted to meet him, and Daniel was about to discover who had been watching all along. The truth revealed. The meeting room was quiet. Daniel entered nervously. Then he saw Sergey Brin. For a moment he thought there had been some misunderstanding. Why would someone of such influence want to speak with him? Sergey smiled. "Please sit." Daniel obeyed. The billionaire wasted no time. I was at the charity event. Recognition appeared instantly. The envelope. Sergey nodded. I watched you return it. Daniel laughed softly. Anyone should have done that. Not everyone would. The room became silent. Then Sergey shared the truth. He had followed Daniel's journey. He had learned about the long hours, the sacrifices, the notebook, the dream. Daniel sat speechless. You did all that? Sergey nodded. Because integrity is valuable. Then he added something Daniel would never forget. Talent creates opportunities. Character sustains them. The billionaire explained why he had not simply written a check. Growth mattered, learning mattered, building mattered. The goal wasn't rescue. The goal was empowerment. Daniel understood immediately. That approach respected his dignity. It recognized his effort. It honored his work. Together they discussed manufacturing strategies, partnerships, testing processes, and long-term goals. For the first time, Daniel felt his dream becoming real. Not because someone saved him, because someone believed in him. As the meeting ended, Sergey extended his hand. This is only the beginning. Daniel shook it. Neither man realized how difficult the next chapter would become, because success was approaching. But so were obstacles far greater than either expected. When everything nearly fell apart, the first prototype failed, then the second, then the third. Months of work produced disappointing results. Pressure mounted, investors grew cautious. Timelines slipped, costs increased. Daniel felt old doubts returning. Maybe the critics had been right, maybe the dream was impossible. One evening he sat alone in the workshop staring at broken components. Exhaustion filled the room. He remembered every rejection letter, every struggle, every sacrifice. For a moment, quitting seemed easier. Then he noticed something taped to the wall, a drawing from his daughter. Underneath was a simple message. Keep going. Dad? Daniel smiled. The next morning he returned to work. He studied every failure. Every mistake became data. Every setback became instruction. Weeks later, a breakthrough emerged. A redesigned filtration system dramatically improved. Performance testing results exceeded expectations. Communities participating in pilot programs reported encouraging outcomes. The project finally gained momentum. But the greatest transformation wasn't technological. It was personal. Daniel had learned that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of success. Many people stop at the first obstacle, others continue. The difference often determines the outcome. As progress accelerated, news spread, organizations became interested, partnership opportunities appeared. The dream was no longer a notebook sketch. It was becoming reality. And a major announcement was about to change Daniel's life forever. The return that changed everything. 2 years later, a crowd gathered for a public launch event. The affordable purification system was now helping communities in multiple regions. Families gained access to cleaner water. Schools benefited. Local organizations partnered to expand distribution. The project had grown beyond anything Daniel once imagined. Journalists asked him the same question, repeatedly. What started all this? Daniel smiled. The day I returned an envelope. The audience laughed softly, but he was serious. One honest decision had altered the course of his life, not because he expected a reward, because character creates opportunities people cannot predict. Later that evening, Daniel stood beside his daughter. The little house was gone, not replaced by extravagance, replaced by stability, security, peace. The things he had always wanted for his family. His daughter looked up. Are we rich now? Daniel smiled. We're blessed. Then he added the lesson that defined the entire journey. Money can open doors. Integrity decides what happens when you walk through them. Across the room, Sergey watched quietly. The billionaire had invested in an idea, but more importantly, he had invested in a person, and that investment had multiplied far beyond profit. It had created hope. It had created opportunity. It had created impact. The story that began with a lost envelope ended with transformed lives, and the greatest reward wasn't financial. It was proof that honesty, perseverance, and compassion still matter. Sometimes one good decision changes a day, sometimes it changes a future, and sometimes it changes the world.